Welcome to the Dark Beyond, where we delve into the most harrowing and mysterious cases from around the world. Today, we bring you a story that shook the nation to its core and led to significant changes in the child protection system. This is the tragic case of Peter Connelly, also known as Baby P. Viewer discretion is advised, as this video contains sensitive and distressing content. Born in 2006, he was a bright and innocent child, but Peter's life would be tragically cut short. He became the victim of unimaginable cruelty, a case that shocked the world. Peter's story is a call for justice, a call for change, a call for a world where no child has to endure such suffering. Peter Connelly's life, though short, was marked by a deeply disturbing reality: child abuse. Hidden behind closed doors, Peter suffered at the hands of those who should have been his protectors. His story is a stark reminder that abuse can happen anywhere, to anyone, and often goes unnoticed. We must fight for a world where every child can live free from fear and pain. Peter Connelly's life began in a family already grappling with difficulties. His mother, Tracy Connelly, struggled with personal issues and instability. Peter's biological father wasn't a consistent presence in his life, leaving Tracy to navigate motherhood largely alone. The weight of these challenges created a fragile foundation for young Peter. Tracy, young and ill-equipped to handle the demands of parenthood, found herself overwhelmed. His early life lacked the stability and security that every child needs. The early signs of trouble were there, hidden in plain sight. Tracy Connelly's life was marked by a series of troubled relationships. She sought solace in the company of men, often choosing partners who were unsuitable for her or for her role as a mother. These relationships, instead of providing stability, brought further chaos and instability into Peter's life. The constant presence of different men in their lives created a sense of unease and unpredictability for Peter. Her story is a complex one, a mix of vulnerability and poor judgment that ultimately contributed to the tragedy that unfolded. Into Tracy Connelly's life entered Stephen Barker, a man who would forever be linked to the darkest chapter in Peter's short life. Barker, with a history of violence and aggression, was ill-suited to be around a vulnerable child like Peter. His presence in their lives marked a terrifying turning point. Barker's controlling and abusive nature quickly became apparent. Peter, caught in the crossfire of their toxic relationship, became an easy target for Barker's rage and cruelty. The house became a prison, a place where terror reigned. Peter Connelly's case unfolded against the backdrop of a social services system already under immense pressure. Haringey Council's Social Services Department, responsible for Peter's welfare, faced a heavy workload, limited resources, and a complex web of cases demanding their attention. Social workers, often operating in challenging and emotionally draining environments, struggled to keep up with the demands placed upon them. The immense strain on resources and the overwhelming nature of the workload created a fertile ground for oversights and failures, with devastating consequences. Despite numerous visits from social workers and healthcare professionals, the true extent of Peter Connelly's suffering remained tragically hidden. Opportunities to intervene and protect him were missed. Warning signs were overlooked or dismissed. And a pattern of abuse was allowed to continue unchecked. Communication breakdowns between different agencies involved in Peter's care further compounded the problem. Each missed opportunity, each unheeded warning, allowed the abuse to continue unabated. Peter Connelly's death was a catastrophic failure of the child protection system, a stark reminder that even the most vulnerable members of society can slip through the cracks. The multiple points of contact with social services and healthcare professionals, far from ensuring his safety, tragically highlighted the system's inability to protect him. The blame for Peter's death cannot be laid at the feet of any single individual or agency. It was a collective failure, a systemic breakdown that allowed abuse to flourish under the noses of those entrusted with his care. Peter Connelly's legacy, forever intertwined with the failings that led to his death, became a catalyst for reform. For Peter Connelly, home was not a haven, but a house of horrors. What began as neglect quickly escalated into a horrific pattern of physical and emotional abuse. Trapped in a world of pain and fear, Peter endured unimaginable cruelty at the hands of those who should have cherished and protected him. Day after day, Peter was subjected to beatings, starvation, and unspeakable acts of cruelty. His small body, fragile and vulnerable, became a canvas for their rage. Peter, trapped in this nightmare, had nowhere to turn, no one to shield him from the storm of violence that engulfed his young life. Peter Connelly's short life became a horrifying chronicle of abuse. Medical records and court testimonies painted a grim picture of his suffering, a timeline of injuries that shocked even seasoned professionals. Over a period of 8 months, Peter suffered more than 50 injuries. Each injury represented a failure to protect, a missed opportunity to intervene and end his suffering. The timeline of Peter's suffering served as a damning indictment of those who failed to protect him. Peter Connelly's suffering unfolded largely hidden from public view. Trapped in a toxic and abusive environment, he became a prisoner in his own home. His cries for help, muffled by fear and the indifference of those around him, went unanswered. The failure to recognize and respond to Peter's silent pleas for help was a collective failure, a tragic testament to the limitations of a system ill-equipped to protect the most vulnerable. On August 3, 2007, Peter Connelly's short and tortured life came to a tragic end. He died alone, surrounded by the people who had vowed to love and protect him, yet had become his tormentors. His death, a horrific culmination of abuse and neglect, sent shockwaves through British society. Peter's death was not a tragic accident, but the direct result of deliberate and sustained abuse. The public outcry that followed Peter's death was immediate and overwhelming. Peter Connelly's death, a horrific tragedy that shook the nation, was immediately met with a full-scale investigation. Detectives, faced with the grim reality of Peter's extensive injuries, knew they were dealing with no ordinary case. The investigation quickly zeroed in on those closest to Peter: his mother, Tracy Connelly, her partner, Stephen Barker, and Barker's brother, Jason Owen. All three had shared the house with Peter, and all three became suspects in his death. The investigation sought to untangle the web of relationships and uncover the truth behind the abuse that led to Peter's tragic end. The trial of Tracy Connelly, Stephen Barker, and Jason Owen was a harrowing affair, laying bare the horrific details of Peter Connelly's abuse and death. The prosecution presented a compelling case using medical evidence, witness testimonies, and the defendant's own statements to paint a picture of systematic abuse and neglect. Peter's injuries, documented in graphic detail, spoke volumes about the violence he had endured. After weeks of emotionally charged testimony and intense media scrutiny, the jury reached their verdict. Tracy Connelly, Stephen Barker, and Jason Owen were all found guilty of causing or allowing the death of a child. Section 3. A nation reacts. Shock, anger, and calls for change. The guilty verdicts in the Peter Connelly case sent shockwaves through British society. The public, horrified by the details of Peter's suffering and the failings of the system meant to protect him, demanded answers and accountability. Peter's story became a rallying cry for change, a catalyst for a nationwide examination of child protection policies and practices. The media played a crucial role in amplifying public outrage, providing extensive coverage of the trial and its aftermath. Newspapers, television programs, and radio broadcasts dissected the case, analyzing the failures that had allowed Peter's abuse to go undetected for so long. Politicians, facing intense pressure to address the systemic issues exposed by the case, launched inquiries and promised reforms. The government, seeking to restore public trust in its ability to protect vulnerable children, pledged to overhaul child protection services and hold those responsible for failings accountable. Peter Connelly's death, a tragedy that shook the nation to its core, became a turning point in the national conversation about child protection. It forced a long overdue reckoning with the shortcomings of the system and ignited a collective determination to prevent such horrific cases from happening again. Section 1. A nation's fury ignited. The guilty verdicts did little to quell the storm of public outrage after Peter Connelly's death. The nation demanded accountability and swift, decisive action. Newspapers condemned the social services and healthcare professionals who failed Peter. Television screens showed his bruised body, a reminder of the horrors he endured. The public felt a collective sense of shame, anger, and a desire for change. Protests erupted, with thousands demanding justice for Peter. Citizens marched together, determined to ensure no child would suffer again. Reforms in the wake of tragedy. The public outcry following Peter Connelly's death spurred significant changes within the child protection system. The government implemented reforms to prevent similar tragedies. More rigorous screening procedures for social workers were introduced. Communication between agencies was significantly improved. Greater emphasis was placed on early intervention and support for families. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when new videos are posted. A promise for a safer tomorrow. Peter Connelly's story is a stark reminder of the human cost of indifference and systemic failure. His short life, marked by unimaginable suffering, became a tragic symbol of the vulnerability of children and the urgent need for vigilance in protecting them. The reforms implemented in the wake of Peter's death serve as a constant reminder that the fight to protect children is an ongoing battle. Peter's story, though steeped in sorrow, carries a powerful message, a call for collective responsibility, a reminder that every child deserves to grow up safe, loved, and free from harm. The fight for child protection is a shared responsibility, a collective endeavor that demands constant vigilance, unwavering compassion, and an unwavering commitment to creating a world where every child is safe, valued, and loved.